morning, everyone. It's great to be here and see so many people engaged in this topic. Of course, we're working with a lot of organizations right now in finding ways to bring the role of the CFO to a different level and help transform the business, not from the traditional sense, but from a strategic way of helping the organization grow and change through these types of times. Just to kick off quickly, we've developed a point of view around the challenges that we're facing in this region within the GCC. And so just wanted to briefly talk about that. We're challenged with similar challenges that other regions are facing, but there's three key topics, three areas that we've seen that cause an increased challenge, a more complex challenge in a more complex environment. The first is that there's immediate requirement for cost reduction in organizations that has to happen right away. It can't take time. It can't be over the next year, 2, 3 years. It needs to happen now. The second thing is that there's nationalization agendas that need to be addressed. And so that's causing quite a challenge with organizations to reduce costs yet meet that requirement. And at the same time in the region, we're faced with higher expectations with our customers, internally as CFOs and finance organizations, there's increased expectations of quality of service. And so those three challenges create a conflict that is complex to overcome. And that's where these disruptive technologies come in to help resolve that. So I know you'll be talking later or hearing later about RPA, and I won't go into detail on that, but we see that as a key enabler to meeting those three challenges because it reduces costs quickly. It enables the nationalization agenda to be met because it changes the ratio and labor mix within your organization. And it increases the quality of the service that you provide as finance and other enabling functions as well within organizations to increase the quality. So as a cost reduction element, it meets that needs along with the other parts that really enhance the quality and the key challenges that we face in the region. In addition to that, there are a number of disruptive forces that are at play. So if you think of this, and the topic that I'm talking about now is CFOs, how to reduce costs and still survive. So in this environment that we're in, that is highly complex, we're also realizing that there are some key disruptive technologies that are creating additional challenges, but they're also enablers in being able to reduce costs. So a couple of them, big data and analytics, RPA, robotics process automation that I just spoke about. Cybersecurity is causing complexity within organizations and risks. Cloud, blockchain, enablers, a lot of ways of enhancing efficiency and reducing costs. And then regulatory, again, another complex area that's being introduced, VAT and IFRS requirements. So the role of the CFO is working in a very dynamic environment that has a lot of complex challenges, but also enablers to help reduce costs. So the role of the CFO in the organization as an enabler to helping the business grow, an enabler to helping achieve strategic initiatives and imperative activities within your organization, also has to continue to be the one who is driving the cost reduction, right? So they're together with leaders in the organizations, the CEO and other CXOs needs to team up and be a partner in organizations in driving those costs down. So typically, the role of the CFO has normally been scorekeeper, custodian, but what we're seeing with organizations, we're working a lot with CFOs, is to push them into that business partner role. And so in the context as an enabler of reducing costs within an organization, but also helping with strategy, it's about getting CFOs into that business partner role within organizations, teaming up with CEOs, teaming up with other executives to drive value and reduce costs in the organization. So we see that as an effective model, an effective role for finance to play in this type of environment as well, right? So coming to the table as a bookkeeper, yeah, absolutely. Scorekeeper, you have to do that. Absolutely as a custodian to keep the assets. But really thinking strategically and practically and pragmatically around how finance and CFOs are going to help the organization reduce costs. We've also identified a lot of key success factors around cost reduction with organizations. And one of the biggest things that we've seen is that it needs to be connected to the strategy and the vision of the organization. So if you think about an organization that's focused on providing high quality service, providing excellent customer care, providing the great prices, all that critical stuff that is directly linked to the vision of what you deliver as an organization. When you're going through cost reduction exercises, there's going to be reductions you're going to have to take and hard decisions you need to make. But you need to be very careful and clear around what areas you want to reduce and what areas you need to preserve. Now, that's where the disruptive technologies come in, is because you can reduce costs in areas that are critical to your business strategy, because you are reducing costs and taking away manual effort, but at the same time, you're speeding up the quality of service. You're creating a consistent product or customer experience for your organization. And so that's where finance and marketing and sales and all the different areas need to team up together and come up with innovative ways to reduce costs, but yet preserve the strategic intent of the organization. We work a lot with organizations in reducing costs, and this is the model that we use when we work through that process. And how we come at it is we bring people together who are responsible for the different areas and look at the data and figure out where the biggest addressable spend is. As in, what areas of the business can we reduce costs? And it can be activity, it can be relationships or contracts, it can be policies and expense policies that you have in your organization, and it also can be organizational structure. And we look at what are the biggest key addressable spend, key areas that we can target and focus on and have the best impact. So in your organization, when you look at it, you're not going to be able to do everything, right? But you look at what are the key areas that you can reduce the costs and have the greatest impact, 4 or 5 areas in your business. Have a dialogue with the people and parts of the organization that are responsible for those areas, because they know the most about their area of the business. So as a consultant, when we go in, we have a methodology, we have an approach, we have subject matter resource and experts that know about every part of the business and where the opportunity is, but it's really the people within the organization in that area that know what can and can't be done, and then there's a challenge as you work through it. And the CFO is at the table and is part of that dialogue to work through that. And then you work through a process of reducing the costs and then really transforming your organization, and it's not easy, but developing a culture within your organization where keeping costs down and cost reduction and being responsible, because you know that if you're reducing your costs and you're being responsible around the areas that aren't creating value for your business, you're able to allocate that into the areas that do create value for your business. And it creates a culture of keeping costs down with an objective of driving value and achieving the business success that you want to achieve. RPA, I know you're going to hear more about it. I don't want to go into it in great detail. We've done a lot of work with organizations with RPA, very specific and focused areas where you can have immediate impact with RPA as a cost reduction enabler. Increases the speed of transactions, processing, increases the quality of what you provide, and at the same time, cost reduction is achieved. So, In today's environment, a lot of people are talking about how do we reduce labor costs, how do we change the labor mix, how do we reduce labor, right? RPA also provides an opportunity to move people from areas that don't create value in the business, maybe top performers who are doing something that takes a lot of time, and allocating them to areas that do create value in the business, right? Or within finance, how do you bring people who are doing all this manual effort, who are doing these activities that take up so much time and provide so little value for the organization, and move them up into areas where they do create value for the organization? And RPA has the ability to do that. And you'll hear more about it later today as well. Now, kind of circling back up to change, I've gone through this a lot with organizations and how to reduce costs, yet survive as a CFO in an organization, be successful as a CFO in an organization, have finance as a successful part of the business to create value and drive value for the organization, and help achieve the overall strategic objectives. Now, that's easier said than done. That's much, much easier said than done. But what it takes is excellent, excellent leadership, a very clear view as leaders to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and tying it all back to the purpose of the organization that is so crystal clear that you can have the conversations with other executives in your organization and get aligned around what that looks and feels like. So if cost reduction is an important thing, you need to talk about it. And one person might think one thing about cost reduction, another person might think something completely different, right? Maybe you align, you become clear, and then you're able to drive that message throughout the organization in a very sequenced, timed process to make sure that you're able to articulate the messages that you want to provide and the purpose of why you're doing it. And you've got a way of making sure that the organization is going to support you through it. It doesn't always happen in terms of support, but it's critical from a change management, and we use the word change management a lot, but it's really change leadership. So how are you as a change leader in your organization going to drive this out? And it's critically important to be able to do that as you embark on this type of journey in cost reduction. As far as a key takeaway that Gina mentioned at the beginning that you can do right out of this conference today is to think about a person in your organization that you can meet with as soon as possible to talk about this. And you may already have those relationships, and you may already be doing it, you may be far along the journey, but who is it in your organization that you can have this conversation with to be able to drive that change in the organization? And start to develop a clear view of what that looks like and how you can work through it. Thank you.